Welcome back. We're going to go now that the assignments are complete. We're going to now start with the PowerPoint presentation for Unit 6. This is still day 4. Okay. So let's get into that more. Alright. Basic maneuvers in low-ish environment. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about natural laws of balance. Intersections. Remember, intersection is by far the most dangerous part of the road. Changing lanes. We'll talk a little bit about changing lanes. Turning around. Parking. Passing and being passed. As I said earlier, anytime you see the little blue screen at the top right, we're just going to skip through that. We'll talk about physical laws. We'll talk about inertia, body in motion, G, standard unit of acceleration or deceleration, extending the time of impact. Remember earlier in one of the videos we talked about how your chest should be about 12 inches from the steering wheel, and that's one reason, or longer. That way you can extend time of impact. This video that we're going to see that associates this talks about even more time to extend and how we can help prevent, how to extend, I should say, time of impact. Physical laws that affect a car crash. Size and weight of car does matter. Whether it's a big pickup truck or a small sports car. Lighter, smaller cars offer less protection. We'll talk about energy, mainly kinetic energy. Poor crash worthiness and good crash worthiness. When you get your car, it might not be a bad idea to look at the crash ratings and standings and things like that. Obviously, you don't want to purchase a car that does have poor ratings or poor crash worthiness. As you can see to the picture to the left, that minivan is in a crash, and you can see where the driver and the car is kind of crunched up. That driver is going to be serious trouble if they make it out alive. However, on the right hand side is good crash worthiness. Okay, those people in that car, as you can see, the cage or the compartment where the passenger and the driver are located is pretty much intact. Now they'll have some bruises, maybe some bangs and cuts and stuff, but chances are that particular crash, the personal injury will be minimum compared to the one on the left. Traction does play a part in it, as we talked earlier, whether it's gravel road or you got something on the road, whether it's oil or leaves, or the road conditions. Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is it sleet, ice, whatever? And the design of the road. Is it low shoulder? Is it a narrow country road? Is it a highway or interstate? So there's a lot of variables in it. Inertia and traction. As you're entering a curve, you want to start reducing your speed. Stop braking. And as you're in the curve, you want to maintain your speed while you're turning. And as soon as you leave the curve or the turn, whichever one you want to say, then accelerate out to the regular speed. Some of the factors that influence the effects of inertia: the sharpness of the curve or turn, speed. Obviously, speed plays a huge part in it. Size and weight or load of the vehicle. Obviously, an 18-wheeler would have to go slow through this turn. roadway slope, roadway surface. Gravity, uphill gravity and downhill gravity do play a part in your driving. There'll be times that you may hear me say gravity's not going to help you. So that means maybe apply the brakes more, or if you're going up a hill, you got to give the gas a little bit more gas to accelerate up the hill. Balance, weight distribution, tire contact. Suspension's good. All cars are kind of different, so we'll go over that. For maximum traction, avoid sudden impact inputs when accelerating, braking, or steering. Focusing on one input, executing one input at a time. Brake, then steer, then accelerate. Approaching an intersection. As I just mentioned, intersections are dangerous. Search all the corners. Make sure you're in the proper lane. Check your mirrors. Adjust your speed. Start slowing down. When entering an intersection, look to the front, to the left, to the right. Check traffic and count to 3. I kind of disagree with this a little bit. I do agree with checking traffic. Okay? If you're at a stoplight or even a stop sign, I would check traffic. Okay? If you're at a stoplight and your side's red and it just turns green, still check traffic. Still look. Okay? I'm not telling you not to. But just look for about a second. Go, real quickly left, right. Okay? In this local area and in a lot of parts in the country, if you were waiting for 3 seconds, 1001, 1002, 1003, depending on where you're at in the country and depending on what time of day, some people will be blowing their horns at you because you haven't started driving yet or experiencing road rage against you. So I agree with checking traffic, obviously. Maybe a second and a half, then move. Okay, that way you won't experience road rage against you. May continue if the light's green, or if the intersection's clear. Obviously, even if it's green and the intersection's not clear, don't go. Don't block intersections. I know you've been in rush hour, different parts of the country, and people block intersections. It's against the law, and you could get a ticket, especially if you cause an accident, or if you cause where the ambulance or fire truck cannot get through to help someone. You could be liable for that. Stopping at an intersection, it's kind of like the three-phase braking. You want to start braking, and then start slowing down a little bit more till you get to a stop. Staggered stops, as you can see the picture to your right there, you're supposed to stop behind the stop line and far back, especially you see the white car and the pickup truck stop behind the stop sign. That way that 18-wheeler has a little bit more room to turn. If you were to stop past the staggered stop, you could get a ticket for it. Double stopped, if you're at a stoplight or stop sign and a car's parked like this particular photo in one, you have to stop first, and then edge up. We go back to, see, they've stopped here at 1, now they're edging up to where they can get a better view, and then stopping again where the driver has a better view, and then make your decision on when to pull out. Where to stop at intersections. Stop behind the stop line or crosswalk, as you see 1 and 2. Sidewalk, if there's a sidewalk behind the sidewalk and stop sign, or if there's curb markings. When you're turning in an intersection, check oncoming traffic. Check cross traffic, other highway users, pedestrians, road conditions. Check your mirrors once again. Signal and steer into the proper lane. Start working on your brakes. Get your brakes. Tap your brakes. Turn in an intersection, adjust your speed, lay off the gas. Recheck your traffic once again. Identify a safe gap. Steer into the proper lane. Adjust speed, and then check your mirrors once again. Turning left, as you can see, hopefully you can see, the top turn left one is incorrect because he's crossing over someone's lane to go to the next as he's turning, which is illegal and very, very dangerous. The bottom left turn is the one that's correct. You're in the left lane, and you try to turn into the closest left lane once you get on the other side of the street. Once again, right turns pretty much the same thought. Check your traffic and pedestrians. You're entering exit and entering the correct lane. So the right one at the top is the correct. So he's in the right lane, he's turning right, and he's going to be in the closest lane, which is his right lane. Now the incorrect one, they're in the left lane, trying to turn into the right, which is once again very dangerous and very, very, very dangerous, very illegal too. Stopping the yield when light's red. Okay, some places you can turn right on red, and that's perfectly fine. But you still have to stop, then turn left on red. Okay? It's not a continuation like some people try to make it. Nowadays, there's on multi-lane intersections, as you see, they're more dangerous. They increase the risk. You gotta have large gap requirements. And you have potential of drivers cutting cross lanes that they shouldn't. Changing lanes, you want to maintain a safe following interval and signal. Make sure you signal as much as you can when you're changing lanes or turning, either one. Check your mirrors, adjust your speed, steer into the lane once you got your gap. Cancel your signal, adjust speed, obviously pick up speed, and check your mirrors. Problems associating with changing lanes. People not using their turn signals. As you can see, just by driving with someone, using your turn signals obviously is very helpful, very safe, but people for some reason fail to do it. And more people are having accidents due to not having turn signals on. People slow down too much. I'll give you an example. If you're merging onto an interstate and it's 70 miles an hour and you only get up to 40, okay, that's too slow. Now if you're at 65 and a 70 mile an hour zone, then that's different. But to be going 40 and a 70, that's too slow, and that's too dangerous. Not selecting a safe gap. Remember, I told you, rearview mirrors and you looking over your shoulders are the only two true, and then to keep the word true, pictures that you can see behind you. The rest of your mirrors, although they work well, they don't give you the exact distance and gap. Turning around, we'll go over this more in the car. 3-point turn, I don't. You will have to do a 3-point turn with me in the car, and when you get your license. They're more dangerous. They're easy though. I wouldn't worry about this diagram. This diagram's somewhat confusing. Never, but here's the key: never attempt near a hill or a curve. Never attempt to do a three-point turn near a hill, a curve, or a busy area. Find maybe a neighborhood or something where you can do a three-point turn, where it's a lot safer. U-turn, mid-block U-turn. A lot of my U-turns, I'll be honest with you, are in neighborhoods when we're driving. So I don't really focus much on the mid-block crosswalks. Mid-block U-turns, except for just to be careful. Check your laws in your area. Important to stop as close to the right edge before turning. And that goes true for a U-turn and also a three-point turn. With what you're doing, you're basically giving yourself some elbow room so that you can have more room to turn. Parking, I'm not going to really go over that a lot with you as far as in parking space. I will go over this one. The reason with the parking space is when we're in the car, or if your instructor's in the car with you, you'll practice parking and make more sense with your instructor than it will be just watching a PowerPoint. Alright, if you're parking on a hill, if you live in a hilly area, mountain area type thing, and you want to park on the road, whether it's to go shopping or if you live on a hilly area, these 4 slides pretty much tell what you need to do. As you can see, they're running parallel with the curb or the edge. The downhill without the curb, you always want to turn your wheels to the right. And the reason being is if for some reason, some crazy reason that the car gets out of gear, or gets into neutral, or something, some reason. I don't know enough about cars to know, but the car will just run off the road. You won't have to run down the hill to chase it. It won't potentially kill anyone. There's a lot less damage. You probably have to call a tow truck because it'll be in the ditch probably. Uphill without a curb, still do the same thing. Turn your wheels to the right. That way, if it would get neutral for whatever reason, it would just roll back into the ditch or to the curb. Okay. Downhill with the curb, same thing. Turn your steering wheel to the right, the wheels to the right. This way, this is a little different. If for some reason, if it were to get out of gear, as I mentioned on the other two, then by you turning it to the right, the wheels are going to be bumped up against the curb, the concrete curb anyway. So it's not going anywhere. I promise you. Uphill with the curb, that's the only one different. That one, what you do is you turn your wheels to the left, like to the traffic. And there again, it bumps up against, the wheels will bump up against the concrete curb. And if by chance you get where your car is out of gear, then it'll just bump up against the curb and you'll be perfectly safe. And so all 4 of them, 3 out of 4 are turn your wheels to the right. And then the last one going uphill, you turn your wheels to the left. Angle parking. More parking spaces are going perpendicular. As I mentioned, your instructor or myself will kind of give you a couple tips to parking, help you out more in this video clips. Parallel parking. Some states require parallel parking. Okay, but if you're listening in North Carolina, you do not have to. It's not required to demonstrate parallel parking when you get your level 2s. Remember, level 2s, your driving test, and basically here in North Carolina, it's a 3-point turn, back up, park, things like that, but no parallel parking. Passing, being passed. Okay. These little slides are where you're not supposed to pass. It's illegal. However, you've been in cars before from where people have done all of these before. Solid yellow line either way, no passing. The one underneath, do not pass in an intersection. Wait, it doesn't matter if you're trying to pass to overtake a vehicle or you're just changing lanes. Do not change lanes or pass in an intersection. This guy here is passing. What if the white car to the front of him decides to turn right? Now he has a head-on collision. Okay, so it's very dangerous. So just stay put in the intersection. I mean, most intersections only take a second or two to get through it, maybe 3 at most. So you could wait that long. So if you're going to change or change lanes or pass anyone, do it well before the intersection or well after the intersection. Railroad crossings, obviously you can't pass there. That's real dangerous. On bridges, do not pass. Smaller bridges, even bigger bridges with multi-lanes, I would stay put. Small lanes like, small bridges like this one that you see in front of you. If it's a white truck, I guess. If that white truck gets distracted or sneezes or something off the out of the normal range of driving, they could actually run into you and could force you off the bridge, and you could potentially die from that, depending on the bridge. Round curves, most like they're very dangerous to start with. Estimate the gap it takes. Do this to the accurate gap. If you see a vehicle approaching, if it's let's say it's a white dotted line and you can pass, but you see a car coming, I wouldn't pass. I'd wait till the lane's cleared where you can pass. Prepare to pass, overtake the vehicle, then return back to your lane. Now keep in mind it takes about 10 to 15 miles an hour to pass a vehicle. So if the car is going 70 that you're trying to pass and you're in a 70 mile an hour zone, chances are it's probably not a good idea to pass, because it's going to take 10 to 15 miles an hour to overtake that vehicle, which puts you at 80, 85 miles an hour, which could get you a ticket. Also, too, remember I talked about earlier, tires are only speed rated for 85 to 90 miles an hour, roughly, depending. And so you're running risk of blowing out a tire as well. Passing on the right, as you can see, the photo to your left is legal. Somebody's cutting left in front of you. If it's clear to your right lane, you can move over, like you can see here in the left photo. It's illegal to go around them on the edge of the road, the shoulder of the road. However, you've seen people do it. However, that doesn't make it legal. Okay? Just because someone does something illegal doesn't mean it's legal. Use your head. Alright, we're going to go to Unit 6 videos.
drivers lost control at very high speeds. The result was tragic for one driver and fortunate for the others. But why? What made the difference between walking away and being carried away? The answer can be found in some of the most basic laws of the physical universe. Hi, my name is Griff Jones. I teach high school physics. And behind me is the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's Vehicle Research Center. It's a fascinating place where research engineers assess the crash performance of vehicles by running tests, and where they evaluate new technologies to prevent injuries, like this state-of-the-art head protection system. What's exciting for me is that this is a laboratory of practical applications in the subject I teach. And because they're set up here to crash cars and analyze those crashes, this research center provides a perfect venue for illustrating the physical laws that govern the outcome of car crashes. So follow me, and for the next few minutes, I'll take you behind the scenes where we can explore the basic science behind vehicle crashes. Let's learn about car crashes and physics. Why'd this dummy get left behind? It's called inertia, the property of matter that causes it to resist any change in its state of motion. Galileo introduced the concept in the late 1500s, and almost 100 years later, Newton used this idea to formulate his first law of motion, the law of inertia. It's why the dummy fell off the back of the truck. It was at rest, and it wanted to remain at rest. That's inertia. It's the same property that keeps the china on the table as you pull the tablecloth out from under it. Now what about a body in motion? Am I a body in motion? You bet I am. I'm moving 35 miles per hour. But from one perspective, it may not look like I'm moving at all, because in relationship to the passenger compartment, my position isn't changing. But if you look at me from the outside, you can see that I'm moving at the same speed as the vehicle. In this case, about 35 miles per hour. And if Newton was right, and we know he was, I'm going to keep on moving at the same speed until an external force acts on me. Now, what does this mean to occupants of a moving vehicle? Watch this. See how the car and the crash test dummy are traveling at the same speed? Now watch what happens when the car crashes into the barrier. The front end of the car is crushing and absorbing energy, which slows down the rest of the car. But the dummy inside keeps on moving at its original speed until it strikes the steering wheel and windshield. This is because the dummy is a body in motion traveling at 35 miles per hour and remains traveling 35 miles per hour in the same direction until acted upon by an outside force. In this case, it's the impact of the steering wheel and windshield that applies the force that overcomes the dummy's inertia. Inertia is one reason that seatbelts are so important. Inertia is one reason that you want to be tied to the vehicle during a crash. If you're wearing your seatbelt, you slow down with the occupant compartment as the vehicle's front end does its job of crumpling and absorbing crash forces. Later, we'll talk about how some vehicles' front ends, or crumple zones, do a better job of absorbing crash forces than others. A G is a standard unit of acceleration or deceleration. People often refer to G's as forces, but they're not. Fighter pilots can feel as many as 9 Gs when accelerating during extreme maneuvers, and astronauts have felt as many as 11. People in serious car crashes experience even higher Gs, and this can cause injury. Now consider what happens when a car traveling 30 miles per hour hits a rigid wall, which shortens the stopping time or distance much more than panic braking. Let's again assume the driver is belted and decelerates with the passenger compartment. And let's also assume the car's front end crushes 1 foot with uniform deceleration of the passenger compartment throughout the crash. In this crash, the driver would experience 30 Gs. However, if the vehicle's front end was less stiff, so it crushed 2 feet instead of 1, the deceleration would be cut in half to 15 Gs. This is because the crush distance, or the time the force is acting on the driver, is doubled. Extending the time of impact is the basis for many of the ideas about keeping people safe in crashes. It's the reason for airbags and crumple zones in the vehicles you drive. It's the reason for crash cushions and breakaway utility poles on our highway. And it's the answer to the question I posed at the beginning of this film. This driver survived the crash because his deceleration from high speed took place over a number of seconds. This driver decelerated a small fraction of a second and experienced forces that are often unsurvivable. Inside the passenger compartment of each car, the occupants would experience the same decelerations from 30 miles per hour to 0. The dynamics of this crash would be the same as a single vehicle crash into a rigid barrier. In a collision of two cars of unequal mass, the more massive car would drive the passenger compartment of the less massive car backward during the crash, causing a greater speed change in the lighter car than the heavier car. These different speed changes occurred during the same time, so the occupants of the lighter car would experience much higher accelerations, hence much higher forces than the occupant of the heavier car. This is one reason why lighter, smaller cars offer less protection to the occupants than larger, heavier cars. There's a difference between weight and size advantage in car crashes. Size helps you in all kinds of crashes. Weight is primarily an advantage in a crash with another vehicle. Even though it's all around us, energy is tough to conceptualize. Scientists have had difficulty defining energy because it exists in so many different forms. It's usually defined as the ability to do work, or as one of my students says, it's the stuff that makes things move. Energy comes in many forms. There's radiant, electrical, chemical, thermal, and nuclear energy. In relating the concept of energy to car crashes, though, we are mostly concerned with motion-related energy, kinetic energy. Moving objects have kinetic energy. A baseball thrown to a batter, a diver heading toward the water, an airplane flying through the sky, a car traveling down the highway, all have kinetic energy. A rapid transfer of kinetic energy is the cause of crash injuries. So managing kinetic energy is what keeping people safe in car crashes is all about. Brian O'Neill is the president of the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. That's incredible.
One of the things we do, we put grease paint on the...
He runs the Vehicle Research Center and is one of the foremost experts in the world on vehicle safety.
We use the term crashworthiness to describe the protection a car offers its occupants during a crash. Now, crashworthiness is a complicated concept because it involves many aspects of vehicle design. The structure, the restraint system, it all adds up to the single term we use, crashworthiness. We use the stripped-down body to illustrate the concepts of good and poor structural designs for modern crashworthiness.
Brian, why is it important for the vehicle structure to perform well in a crash?
Well, this is what's left of the body and structure of a car that was in a crash, and we use this to illustrate the point. Basically, we want the occupant compartment or the safety cage to remain intact. We don't want any damage or intrusion into this part of the vehicle during the crash.
Okay.
We want all of the damage of the crash confined to the front end.
So even though all this metal looks the same, it's actually different. The green metal is intended to crumple, to give in the collision.
If we can crumple the front end of the car without allowing any damage to the occupant compartment, then the people inside can be protected against serious injury. Basically, we want the front end to be buckling during the crash so that the occupant compartment is slowed down at a gentler rate.
Right. Kind of like jumping off of a step and keeping your knees straight and landing on the floor versus bending your knees when you land.
Exactly the same concept. So this is a vehicle that did well because there's very little intrusion anywhere in the occupant compartment. These elements here, even though they're strong enough to hold an engine and suspension, actually buckled and crushed just like they're designed to do. So the damage is confined to the front end. We look at a vehicle like this, and this is an example of a very poor safety cage. This vehicle was in a 40-mile-an-hour crash, and as you can see, the occupant compartment has collapsed. It's been driven backwards. As a result, the driver's space has been greatly reduced. So someone sitting in this vehicle is obviously at a high risk of injury.
So even if the restraint systems do function properly, the airbag, the seat belts, the person still is in great danger.
This person in this vehicle, even with a belt system and airbag, is at significant risk of injury because the compartment is collapsing.
So it's analogous to shipping a box to China. You can have all the best packing in the world around the China, but if the box is weak, you're going to break the China.
When the safety cage collapses, you're going to have injuries to the occupants. So this is an example of poor crash worthiness. But this vehicle was in the same crash. 40 mile an hour, offset crash.
Right.
And you can see that now the safety cage has remained intact. There's very little intrusion anywhere. The damage is confined to the crumple zone of the vehicle. This is the way it should be. A person in a crash like this, wearing their seat belt and protected by the airbag, can walk away from the crash with no injury.
Right. If I stand over here and I just look towards the rear of the car and I ignore the airbag, this doesn't even look like it's been in a crash.
That's right. This is good performance, good crash worthiness.
In our shipping box analogy, this is an example of a strong box.
That's right. The people in this box will be protected.
Brian, obviously this car performed well, but what's in the future for crash worthiness?
This is an illustration of how good we can do with frontal crash worthiness, but frontal crashes are only part of the problem. We obviously also have to pay attention to other crash modes, and one of the most important is the side impact crash. Now this is a vehicle that was in a severe side impact crash. This vehicle was going 20 miles an hour sideways into a pole. And as you can see, in a side crash, you don't have all the crush space you have in a frontal crash. We just have the width of the door and the padding, and in this case we have an airbag on the inside which creates even more space. We inflate the airbag to create more crush space, and we also have an inflatable airbag to provide head protection up in this region. This deploys in this roof area here. So the physics are the same, the engineering challenges are greater.
I am always looking for ways to relate the physics that I teach to the real world that my students experience. And nothing is more relevant than traveling in an automobile. You probably do it every day. I hope that makes the message of this film important to each and every one of you. I also hope you've learned why some of the choices you make about the type of car you drive and the kind of driving you do can make a difference in whether you survive on the highway. Remember, even the best protected race car drivers don't survive very high-speed crashes. The bottom line is the dynamics of a motor vehicle crash. What happens to your car and you?
Let's start with turning. We approach a turn at the right speed. Here we have more than a ton of car wanting to go straight ahead and only the front tires to turn it. Whenever we go too fast, the tires lose their grip. Approaching the turn, we're better off going too slow than too fast. We start from the middle of the lane. Starting too far to the right, we have trouble getting around. Moving left at the start may make for an easier turn, but risks a collision with someone to the left or encourages someone to try passing us on the right. In making the turn, we need to allow for the fact that the rear wheels track well inside the front wheels. We need to round out the turn so that the rear wheels clear the corner. Let's see the whole turn. From the middle of the lane, around the corner, into the middle of the new lane, and straighten out. We need to guard against a few common mistakes. There's a way to keep from doing this. We need to wait until the side mirror is even with the corner before we start the turn. A second mistake is turning too wide. This usually results from starting the turn too late or not turning the wheel sharply enough. The last is not straightening soon enough and overshooting the turn. A left turn is wider and easier, but it's made the same way. We proceed to the middle of the intersection far enough to turn without cutting the corner and turn into the middle of the lane. Smoothly done.
When turning corners, there is one basic rule for lanes. We start from the lane closest to the direction we want to go and turn into the lane closest to where we came from. On a right turn, we start from the right lane and enter the right lane. This way, we cross the fewest lanes of traffic and have the smallest chance of interfering with others. If we need to be in the other lane for some reason, we change lanes after the turn.
Statistics show that new drivers are much more likely than more experienced drivers to miss seeing cars at intersections. We check the path ahead and to the left to make sure the way is clear. No problem. But it's not always that easy. This time we need to wait for that car. We can pull into the intersection, so we'll be ready when the way is clear. We keep the wheels straight ahead to keep from being pushed into the other car's path in case we're hit from behind by an inattentive driver. Okay, now can we go? He has a green light too. Always make the last check a check of the travel path you're about to enter. When we cross or enter traffic, we need a large enough gap to accelerate from a standing start. That can take several seconds. On city or residential streets where cars are traveling 25 to 30 miles per hour, that's about a half a block. Out on the highway, it's double that distance. A car may be moving a lot faster than it appears. That's why it pays to play it safe and allow plenty of room.
Room to enter is one thing. Room to exit is another. We never enter an intersection until we're sure we can make it all the way through. Let's go for a drive.
What do we do here? We edge out very slowly until we can see upstream.
We'd like to make a left turn here.
What should we do now? We were smart to ignore the guy waving us on. He has no way of knowing if the way is clear. He wants us to move so that he'll have a better view.
It looks clear now. Wrong.
Sometimes we can't get a good view of oncoming traffic. In that case, we have to wait until the light changes, or if we're lucky, traffic clears.
The time that it is an absolute necessity to check behind is before we attempt to move into someone else's lane. As we saw in an earlier session, with the mirrors adjusted properly, we can see cars behind us. And if a car appears in the side mirror at all, it is too close. Of course, we still have to look to the side. By using our mirrors to glance behind us, we can keep our attention focused primarily ahead, which is our first duty. We also need to check the mirrors after a pass. It looks far enough back, but that's a convex mirror. Only the inside rear mirror can give us the true picture. It's safe to change lanes only when we can see the whole front of the car.
When driving and you need to turn around, the safest way is to back into an alley or driveway on the right. Before turning around, check traffic to the rear and signal intention to the right. Make sure the alleyway or driveway is clear. Back slowly, turning the steering wheel all the way to the right. As the vehicle centers in the alley or driveway, straighten the wheels. Then turn on the left signal, shift to drive, and check the traffic in both directions. Turn left into the proper lane and accelerate as appropriate. Another way to turn around is to head into an alley or driveway on the left. To do this, check traffic and signal left. Stop as the rear bumper clears the edge of the roadway. To back out, shift to reverse. Signal to the right and check traffic. When it is safe, turn the steering wheel rapidly all the way to the right, then straighten the steering wheel as you enter the lane. Then shift to drive and accelerate smoothly. A more complex way to turn around, if there are no alleys or driveways, is to complete a three-point turnabout. To do this, check traffic, signal right, and stop as close as possible to the right edge of the roadway. Check traffic again, signal left, turn and move slowly forward while steering rapidly all the way to the left. Quickly check for traffic, shift to reverse, back slowly and steer sharply to the right until your wheels are close to the edge of the road. Again, check traffic, shift to drive, and steer into the proper lane, adjusting speed as appropriate. When driving,
Sorry about that.
Turns into parking spaces are like any other turn, only a bit tighter. We position the car and signal just as we would for a right turn. We're far enough away from the other cars to make a wide turn. As we turn, we get our left bumper as close to the left as we can, so that our right rear clears the car on the right. And then pull all the way to the curb. Angle parking is similar, but easier. Getting in and out of a parking place along the curb is a good test of our ability to handle a car. Some states include it on the license exam. First, we stop with the back end of the car even with the front of the parking spot, about 2 feet away from the other car. We shift to reverse and check behind. We back slowly, turning the steering wheel to the right until the car is aimed at the back of the parking space. Then we straighten the steering wheel to drive toward the car behind. As we clear the rear of the other car, we turn the steering wheel sharply left while backing slowly. We want to keep the rear wheels 6 to 12 inches from the curb. If the tires are against the curb, we can't turn. We continue backing until the car almost touches the car behind. Now, we turn the wheel to the right and pull forward until the car is lined up with the curb. We move the car back or forward as needed to even out the space. Parallel parking is tricky and doesn't always succeed the first time. We may end up too close to the curb and find that we can't back far enough. Or we may end up too far from the curb and too far out in the street. If so, our best bet is to pull out and start the process over again. Leaving is a little easier. We back the car slowly. Then we turn the wheel to the right to aim the front of the car toward the street. If the parking space is cramped, we may need to start backing with the wheel hard to the right. Turn hard left and enter the street slowly. After entering the street, we steer to the right to align the vehicle in the lane, straighten the steering wheel, and accelerate to match the speed of traffic. Just to be absolutely sure it doesn't take off on its own. Of course, we always set the parking brake and put the car in park, so this will never happen. Well, almost always. If we're parked on a downgrade, we need to turn the wheels sharply to the right and let the car roll up against the curb. If there's no curb, we just turn the wheels sharply to the right. If the car does roll, it will stay out of the road. Facing uphill, we can turn the wheels sharply left and let the car roll backward against the curb. Again, if there's no curb, we can turn the wheel right so the car would roll away from the road. Let's see how long it takes us to pass. According to the timer, that took 12 seconds. At 55 miles per hour, we traveled about 968 feet. So we need a gap of 968 feet to pass at 55, right? Not even close. That oncoming car will travel the same distance we do. That will cut our gap in half, meaning we need twice as much distance. Gap City.
That's what makes passing on two-lane roads so dangerous. Head-on crashes are not common, comprising less than 2% of all crashes, but they account for about 15% of fatalities.
The human eye can't detect motion at the distance we need in order to pass at highway speeds. A car that far away seems to be standing still. That means if the car seems to be getting closer, it's already too close. Rule 1. We can't always see far enough ahead. Oops! That leads to Rule 2. When curves or hills keep you from seeing far enough ahead, assume there's a car just about to appear. We need the same distance to a hill or curve as to an oncoming car. Here comes the last rule. What do we do now, other than pray? Maybe someone will let us back in the right lane, but we can't count on it.
Okay, we're finished with Unit 6, the PowerPoint, and the videos. Today's special code is WTR 2727. Once again, WTR 2727. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.